Hello, my name is Pierre White. This is my channel where I share everything else other than four-wheel drive and overlanding exploits. The video I'm going to put up now is a repeat. You may have seen it before, and I actually took it off the channel thinking that this channel should be dedicated to photography and filmmaking, and I've decided that in fact was a bad idea. I regret taking the video down. I'm going to put it back up because soon after I did take it down, I had 15 or 20 requests. Please put it back. It's giving us inspiration. This is an important topic, and let's face it, YouTube is very good at inspiring people. So here it is again. Forgive me if you've already seen it. This was recorded in late 2017. Today I'm going to talk about my experiences leaving South Africa as my home of 42 years, moving to England. I spent 3 years in England and then now moving to Australia. I've been here for a little over 1 year. What I have to share with you I think will be of particular value to you if you are in South Africa, South African, thinking about emigrating, thinking about taking your business, your home, your family and going to another country. Obviously an enormous decision to make, and the reasons for leaving South Africa, I'm not going to talk about those, but I'm going to talk about how I believe those that have made the move very successfully and what they've done and what I've experienced and what I've witnessed and what I've seen that may be of use to you. I moved from South Africa in 2013 and I went to England. The reasons why I went to England were mainly financial, business, which it drew me to the UK, and what I discovered was something quite different, to a totally different mindset to South Africa, and I found it very, very difficult. As it so happened, I was very successful in that I discovered other things that were very beneficial to me personally in England. But I didn't enjoy my stay in England, my 3 years in England, because it is so different from South Africa. And everything I did, all the films that I made, I would actually have to leave England to make films. In fact, I could honestly say that of all of the places that I filmed in, the most difficult is the UK, because people moan and complain, and I found it difficult doing business there. However, Australia is quite different. But I do digress a little bit. I don't want to get too personal. I want to be able to share with you what I believe is the recipe for success. England. If you're thinking about moving to England, you will find, and I think it is common of every South African that I met in England, you will find the climate utterly and completely debilitating and depressing. The reality is that summer in England will top 30 degrees on one day, will top 25 degrees on 4 days, and will top 22 degrees on another 13 days. That's summer in the UK. It will rain on those days as well. The rest of the time it is cloudy. If you're a photographer like me, you will be frustrated because the light is mostly awful. In the countryside, in the evenings, when the sun's going down, sometimes you have magnificent sunsets, gorgeous oranges in the the beauty is there. It is there, but to find it is quite challenging because of the weather. The traffic in most of England, particularly in the central and south, is appalling. It is. I spent in the 3 years, and I don't commute. I've never commuted. Well, I wouldn't say never. In the last 30 years, I have not commuted. I've worked for myself. I worked at home. I spent more time in traffic jams in the UK in the 3 years I was there than I have done in total the rest of my entire life. And it is an ongoing, it is brain damage. I found it. I love driving. I love getting on the road. I love travel. Not in England, I don't. Because the traffic is so bad. In summer, you want to go on a holiday. And so you book a B&B or a little lodge or something, and you have to book like a year, 2 years in advance in the nice places. That's why caravanning is so popular in the UK. And in summer, you get behind the caravans, and the caravan parks are packed. Everything is packed. All the summer spots, beach spots are packed. So really going on holiday in England in summer, not my idea of fun at all. Just so many people, crowds, terrible traffic. You can never find parking. That's something you have to actually deal with in England. I found doing business in England also quite challenging. For example, I wanted to photograph some seat covers on a Land Rover Defender, and I wanted to take pictures and do a vlog in a dealership. Now, I would go into a dealership. I went into 2 separate dealerships, and I had the same similar response. Yeah, well, I have to check with my manager. He'll be here, this afternoon. Is that all right then? Okay, you need to check with your manager for me to take a picture in your dealership. Yeah. If you don't mind. Okay, phone. Manager's not here. Manager eventually gave up. Went to another one. No. Why? Well, I found the pattern of doing business in England like this. It's always kind of, well, we don't really do it like that, That's why it took 30 years for the idea of actually buying milk in bottles actually moved from the United States over to England. 30 years it took that idea to actually move to England, because it's a whole kind of thing about, well, we don't, it's not West, we don't do it like that. Yeah, no. Yeah. I found it very, very frustrating. We are in South Africa, the business is more Americanized, it's more drive, there's more kind of, more energetic is probably the best. And I found it difficult doing business in the UK, and I'll give you an example why. I have made 2, one of them won an award, but 2 aviation documentaries, and then they were about British aircraft, Avro Shackleton, and the other one was English Electric Lightnings, Hawker Hunters, and Buccaneers, and this was going to be, these were going to be top sellers on the airshow circuits in the United Kingdom. They hadn't seen them before. This was an opportunity to sell a lot of DVDs. So I sent out a flyer and got on the phone, and I spent about a week and a half to 2 weeks contacting everybody I could find who was selling DVDs online, offline, and at air shows. I had 1 taker. 1. They were too lazy. And I know that the top selling videos have Spitfires and English Electric Lightnings on them in the UK circuit, particularly Lightnings. And the cover of my thing is this beautiful lightning on it. It's all about lightnings. It's lightning. It had to sell. The one person that did buy, bought all of my stock, bar about, about 10 copies. It was all gone within 4 weeks. Gone. One person. And they weren't going to air shows. They were just selling on eBay. They bought 10 of each, and 3 days later she said, can I have another 10? Can I have another 10? And she sold them all, and that was the end of it. And I didn't reprint because I thought, having just one, that's going to run out, so you need a length. And anyway, that was doing business in the UK. It was enormously frustrating. So, I, for a number of reasons, which I won't go into, we then went to Australia. And for those of you who want to know more about Australia, what's it really like for South Africans in Australia? Now, like all countries, I can speak for Western Australia because I've lived here for a year, I know a little bit about it, and I cannot speak for other parts of Australia. But I do know in Western Australia, and this has been a place where for many, many years, South Africans have migrated to Perth, Western Australia. One of the reasons is that there's a lot of mining in the area and a lot of mining expertise in South Africa, and it's associated. That's one of the reasons why a lot of South Africans came here, but by no means the only reason. There are South Africans everywhere. But I say that, and I say you've got to be a little bit careful with this, because a lot of South Africans have moved to Western Australia and have sought out other South Africans. And this is a natural thing to do, but I don't necessarily think it's a good thing to do. Those that have sought out, many, not all by any stretch of the imagination, but many of those who have sought out other South Africans have never settled here. They're not happy here. They would really rather go home, because they haven't made it home. They haven't tried to make Australia home. They haven't tried to make friends with Australians. I find generally the Australian people to be an absolute delight. They're easygoing. They're very friendly, generally speaking. They're a really nice people as a general rule. They really, really are. There are a lot of English people here too. A lot. But I think there are more, but I don't know what the statistics are, South Africans than English. It's probably less, but it feels more, probably because I'm recognizing more of them as I go about my daily business. Those that cling to other South Africans, as a general rule, have often found it difficult to settle, to feel comfortable, to make this home. I have actually deliberately not sought out South Africans. I went to our accountant. She's a South African. The accountant company is owned by a South African. I didn't seek them out. I was just given some recommendations. Oh, these guys are good. Oh, these guys are good. They just turned out to be South African. I don't care, as long as they're good. They are. They seem to do good. Nice people, doing a good job with our accounting. Invited us to a school. She has kids at the school, and she's on the board or something, and she's involved in the school. So I think it's part of the church-run school or whatever. And it was a South African morning where they were going to have boerie rolls and vetkoek and things like that, South African delicacies, if you can call them that. And we went there, and they were playing boere music. I didn't like it there. I just found the whole of these people just singing Afrikaans songs and talking Afrikaans and being South African and trying to take a chunk of South Africa out of South Africa and bring it to Australia. How can that ever work? How can you find satisfaction in doing that? I don't know, but maybe they do, but I know a lot that don't. And I've heard more stories from that environment of people being very unhappy here. And I've heard so many other South Africans. And I've dealt a lot with South Africans building my latest Land Cruiser. Almost everybody who was involved was, no, I wouldn't say almost everybody. Half of them were involved, were South African. And I asked them, how do you find it? And they love it. They love it. They absolutely love it. Love it. Even the lady that we went to, she is, my accountant lady. And I said, how do you find it? And she loves Australia. She's Afrikaans as they come. She says it is so, so nice. And let me give you some good points about England and Australia when compared to South Africa. One has to, if you're thinking about leaving to South Africa, you've got to remember when you arrive, why did I leave? Because if those reasons why you left haven't been sorted out, then don't leave. That would be just foolish. That's just surely. So decide what you want to get rid of, what you want to change, and what will you get in the UK and what will you get in Australia. What I wanted was a future for my children, and there is a future in Australia and there is a future in the United Kingdom. There's no question about it. And I think that particularly, well, in both places, there's good quality education, there are good opportunities for young people to get ahead in the world and do lovely things and have a happy life and have a satisfying life in both countries. More so in Australia, but I'm probably biased because I'm used to living in Africa, and in Australia is new. It's the new world. It's not the old world. It's the new world. And there's a very, very... England is the old world in the very old sense. The middle class live in tiny little houses, minute. and they live in small towns, and the streets are narrow, and it's old world. And also a great deal of, a huge amount of old world thinking that I've described before. Australia, streets are wide. I live in northern Perth, where the streets are very wide because it's very modern, it's very new. It doesn't have a sense of history, no sense of history at all. It doesn't have the prettiness of the English countryside. It has the beauty of the Australian beaches and outback. Very different kind of beauty. That's subjective. But in terms of a place to live, Australia works. I'll give you an example. it was a mundane thing. I needed the key number. When you have a pet, they have to be injected with a chip, and there's a number which can be tracked, and it's all sorted. And I needed a number for our cat. We had lost the number. And I got a number and I phoned. Yes, sir. How can I help you? I need a number. Yes, one moment, please. On to another person. I need a number. Now I'm thinking, because I've lived in South Africa for 40 years, I'm thinking, how is this going to work? It's going to be a nightmare, you know. I was on the phone for about 4 minutes. I had the number. No problem at all, sir. No, the number is. Have you got a paper? Yes, sir. There. Thank you very much. It works. Going to the UK, old world thinking. Went to a bank, can't open a bank account for you. Why not? You don't have a fixed address. No, but I do have an address, but I'm moving from that address. You know, you've just come into the country. No. 4 banks said no. One of them was nationwide, and I even had a nationwide account, but I had a nationwide overseas account. I wanted a nationwide local account. No. Shorten that story a bit, eventually got into a bank and they said, yes, but we'll give you a card, but all you can do with that card is use it as a teller machine. Can't use it in shops or anything like that. You can put the money in and take it out at a teller machine. End of story. You can't do nothing else. Okay, well, that's better than nothing. That was Santander. Eventually walked into a Lloyd's. They helped us across the board, just helped us with everything. Very good service, good banking. But that was a nightmare. New world thinking. I get a phone call. I'm in the UK. I got 2 months to wait before my ticket to fly to Australia. Hello, sir, I believe you're moving to Perth. Yes, we're Commonwealth Bank. Oh, would you like to open a bank account? Yeah, I guess so. Would you like to open it now? Yes. How many bank accounts would you need? How many members of your family? 5. Would you like to open 5 bank accounts? Yes, please. All we had to do, it was all done. 1 phone call and 3 emails. It was done. We arrived here, went to the bank, picked up our cards, done. Organising everything but telephones was extremely smooth. The lights, the water, the gas, everything. Extremely. Vehicle licenses, car licenses, driving licenses. Simple. Short queues, not long queues at these places to get things done. Simple, efficient. It works. It just plain works. And I could go and rant about Telstra and about OpenReach in the UK. Getting our telephones in both places was a real headache. Real headache. Very much old world thinking in both cases. What about general standard of living? Australia is expensive. I think it's food. It's more expensive than... You see, I know the prices in South Africa have gone up through the roof. My daughter has spent quite a bit of time. She's gone back and she's coming back here now. But she was saying that things are horrifically expensive there. So I don't really have a measure. But I do have a measure against England. Food is definitely more expensive in Australia. Lights, water, gas, very similar. Western Australia is one of the most expensive parts of Australia because of the distance we are from everywhere. It is expensive. Rents, quite expensive. In terms of South African rands, very expensive. Just mind-bogglingly expensive when you convert to rands. But of course, remember, once you start earning dollars, it's not expensive. And the great part about this socialist system in Australia is that if you prepare to work hard, you can live well, even if you don't have much of an education. And even if you're doing a fairly rudimentary occupation, builder or something like this, you can actually live reasonably well. The minimum wage systems and the healthcare systems and various other systems in this country means that the levels of poverty, of course, they're nothing like they are in South Africa for obvious reasons, but they're also nothing like they are in the UK. The standard of living here is far higher, as far as I can see with my own eyes. The standard of living in Australia is far higher than it is in the United Kingdom. One of the bit of research I did is we were thinking about coming to Australia is a standard of living, and I learnt that particularly families with young people, young kids, in England, one of the biggest challenges is finding something for them to do. Most of England, there is nothing to do but go shopping and go to the pub. Okay, there's very little to do. You have to find special interests, fishing or cycling and things like that, but it's difficult to find things to do. Weather plays a very, very big part, because most of the year the weather is so bad that it's horrible to spend time outside, or if you do spend time outside, it's through very short windows. Here it's the exact opposite. There is so much to do. The government, and I see Western Australia, the government has set out parklands, beautiful parklands where kids can go and play, and beaches everywhere, and there's showers at the beaches that you can use, and they're free. There's places where there's barbies where you get free gas. It's supplied by the local municipality councils, where you can go and cook a meal on a beach on a gas barbecue, and the gas is free. That's not something that could ever be conceived of in a country like South Africa because of the levels of poverty. It's in that respect, Australia is very different from South Africa. It has less diversity in this country in terms of its people, for obvious reasons again. It has less diversity in terms of its landscapes. You and I know from South Africa that in that one country you have incredibly high mountains to open deserts to beautiful beaches, and you have this very, very varied topography. And Australia is not as varied, but the coastlines of Australia are you blow your mind. They're as spectacular as anywhere on the globe. No high mountains. There are mountains, but not of that. But you can go skiing north of Sydney, a couple of hours north of Sydney, or is it Melbourne? Forgive me, I might be wrong there, but 2 or 3 hours north of those, you can go skiing in proper skiing, genuine proper skiing. Very expensive. Very expensive. So to go on a holiday in Australia is very expensive. That's why caravanning is very popular here as well. But you have enormous distances. So whereas in the UK, to cross the UK from bottom to top will take how long? 2 days? To do it's less than 1,000 miles. Here you can do the same distance in half a day because of the traffic, because you just get on the open roads. You've got these beautiful long open roads. They're not busy, they're not congested, and it is not South Africa without South Africa's problems. It's a different country. It is not the same. It's a very, very different countries. And there are parts of Africa that I miss terribly. As a traveller, do I miss the animals? Not really, because I'm not looking for the animals, am I? If I'm going to the Kruger National Park and I'm going to go there to see animals, I'm going there specifically to see animals. If I go down to the outback, I'm going there to see this wilderness. I'm going for a different reason. So making that comparison, Australia doesn't have any animals. Australia's got a lot of animals. They're just different. And you find them in different ways, in different places. It's got a lot of wildlife. It's just not as intense because you don't have the big cats. But you have it. So if you're interested in wildlife, Australia has an enormous amount to offer. If you're just interested in the big five, fine. It doesn't. It's got crocodiles. So it's not the same. Just to wrap up, is that I have found, I feel at home now. For the first time, I never felt at home in England the 3 years I was there. I feel I'm at home, and I will be settled, and I've settled in Australia, and I will. This is where I'm going to spend the rest of my days, I think. I have no intention of going anywhere else. I do not pine for South Africa anymore. Do I regard it as home? To an extent. I owe it something, I guess. I will go back. I'd love to travel there. I'll go back and make my films there, continue to do that. I will definitely do that. But it's not home anymore. I have managed to do something in Australia which I could not do in England. And to be absolutely honest with you, if you said to me now, you have a choice, South Africa with all its challenges, or the United Kingdom, pick one, I'd pick South Africa in a heartbeat. Even with all its enormous challenges that it is now going through. I would live in South Africa before I lived in England. Because I realized after being in England for a year and a half that this country was going to kill me. I was going to just shrivel up and die. I disliked it that much. I had to get out. And I would go and do my shoots in Africa and America, and I would come back and I would look out of the window and I'd see the England rolling countryside, which in itself is very pretty. But until you actually live there, you can't understand it. And I would look out of the window of the airplane and think, oh, God, just a feeling of dread. I'm just going back into this thing. Here, I'd been here 3 months, and I got on a plane and went to the United States. And when I came back here, I looked out of the window, I thought, I'm home. And that's the difference. And it's made all of the difference.